Hello, and welcome to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I'm Ryan Purvis, your host, supported by our producer Heather Bicknell. In this series, you'll hear stories and opinions from experts in the field, stories from the front lines, the problems they face and how they solve them, the areas they focused on from technology, people and processes, to the approaches they took that will help you to get to the grips with the digital workspace inner workings.
This is random, but I have been meaning to tell you that I finished Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So I've actually watched a full season of Star Trek, yeah.
And what are your thoughts?
I really liked it. Just a lot of great, memorable episodes and writing and directing. So now I'm on to Next Generation, which watching the first season of Next Generation after watching Deep Space Nine is a little bit like, it was filmed before. So as I'm sure you know, so it's a little rough because after coming off the end of Deep Space Nine, but I'm invested, I guess.
Yeah, it's a bit weird to watch it that way, but I mean, I watch them like on loops. So like I'm looping through Enterprise again. And it's just nice to have them on, like while I'm working in the background, and you don't have to worry too much about what's going on in the storyline because you've already watched the series a few times, so it's all fine. But it's just the writing's so good, and in a lot of ways the things that I like about these series, and in Enterprises. I'm obviously top of mind because that's what I'm watching. A lot of what they write about, a lot of the writers, what they did is they've made it related to real issues in the world at the time. That's probably why I like the series so much, because it always relates to stuff that's going on in the world.
They do ask like real moral questions and sort of explore that a lot. So
and I think that was Roddenberry's thing. Because I don't know if you remember the history, but basically Star Trek was the first TV show to have a woman of color on the as a main actress, and then obviously through various seasons you've had more modern things like gay relationships, and if you watch the latest one, which is Discovery, there's a gay relationship on it, which is a big step, So these are they're good things because that's real life. I mean, that's what we're expecting out of shows, to show more consistent to what's actually happening.
Yeah, especially when it's set in the future. Yeah. Star Trek. Who knew?
Well, it's funny because I've been watching a lot of series while I've been working, and I think. I was watching Halo, for example, which is also really good, if you haven't watched it yet. And what I'm enjoying about them is it's besides being an escapism from real life, it's almost playing with some of these ideas, in a TV format where they can explore some of the solutions to these ideas as well, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it does. I agree. It's interesting TV.
Yeah, sorry, we've gone down a science fiction route.
Sorry, I started it. I was thinking we could chat about Bing AI. Microsoft is obviously making a bunch of different moves to incorporate OpenAI, ChatGPT technology into their software. So one of the latest versions of that is a new version of Bing, which is fascinating, right? Because Bing has always been the sort of joke of a search engine, compared to Google. Never really got a lot of traction. It's just kind of always been, the butt of the joke. But now it's getting a ton of attention because it's they've released, some beta version only for Edge browsers right now on Windows, new version of Chromium Edge. And you have to opt in. It's not like you can't just go and look at it now, but eventually it will be rolling out wider. But where they've actually incorporated the engine of that AI intelligence right in both like surfacing, like helping you like summarize content on a page and having a separate chat where you can work things through. And there's a few different ways it manifests. But I was just reading their blog on it today from the Microsoft site and listen to the language that they use to talk about this moment. Like they are hyping it up as like this is revolutionary, right? Which maybe it, we can talk about that, but this is the opening of their blog. To empower people to unlock the joy of discovery, feel the wonder of creation, and better harness the world's knowledge. Today, we're improving how the world benefits from the web by reinventing the tools billions of people use every day, the search engine and the browser. That's pretty bold language. So they're,
yeah. I must admit, I'm never a fan of bullshit language, but other than in movies where it should be. And I mean, as much as Bing makes money for Microsoft, I don't know many people that actually use Bing. So forcing someone to use it is a tricky one for me personally. And specifically when you lock it into a browser, I think that's also a little bit of an issue. But I think reality is it is the next step in some respects, because if you would go and search, whether it's DuckDuckGo or Google or Bing, there's just so much noise to go through in your results. So having something that can filter it and make it sensible makes sense. But I don't think it's an earth-shattering move. I just think it's a natural iteration.
I think where I see the greatest impact is really not so much on the experience. Like, yes, on the experience, of course, but we sort of, there's lots and lots of people trying out a similar experience today by just using ChatGPT, experimenting with OpenAI technologies. Obviously, when you're plugging that into real-time web stuff, the experience gets different and what you can do with it gets different. But I wonder how it's going to transform the web, because if people, if the experience takes off, this becomes the default search experience. What does that mean for the websites that are actually the ones holding all of this content, right? Because Google's had something for a while called featured snippets that you've probably seen, right? Is when you're doing a search result and Google just pulls the information out of the websites, or even, the commonly asked questions, right? Google's done a few things to make it so that you don't need to actually go into websites to access content. But of course, a lot of websites are run on ads, or they obviously want you to actually go to their site to learn more. So, this is sort of an even more souped up version of that, right? Not needing to actually go into a website. So I actually have a bit of a prediction here, a hot take, but I think this is going to be good for websites that aren't about content, but are about action, right? Imagine like you are, for certain websites anyway, you're planning a trip with the help of Bing AI, and it's bringing in links to here's where you book your hotel, here's where you book your flight. Any site that's about action is still going to get surfaced, and you're still need to get, going to need to go there and do your transaction, right? But if it's the content, like here, are the famous historical places to visit in Paris, any website that would have held that content before is at a disadvantage. So that's my hot take. I don't know what it's going to do for content, but.
Well, and I was going to say, I think the thing that needs to change, and it's definitely a frustration that I have. We were just talking about booking a holiday now, is, the biggest frustration of booking anything is trying to plan it with knowing what to do. And I'm not just talking about, you're going to be in Egypt for a week and go look at the pyramids. What you really want is some intelligence to know that, like, if we're going to travel somewhere, it's 2 adults, 2 kids. We're going to fly from X location. We want to land in X location. We want to do, because we've got kids, we want to do kid-friendly things. So you don't want to spend hours and hours and hours looking at, which hotels to go to, which flights to take, what scenic things to see. et cetera, et cetera. What you want to do is say, we want to go to Egypt for a week. Here are the dates. Come back with the information for me. And that could be a list of links with recommendations that they've already done the checks. And I think this comes to your action and your content points where they'll say, stay at this hotel because this hotel's got a great kids club and lots of activity for the kids. And it's, TripAdvisor gives it a 5 out of 5. And here are the 3 top comments, in the last month for confirming how I got to this hypothesis. And these are the flights you should take. This is the amount of luggage you should carry with you. This is the weather at this time of year. So all that contextual stuff that you don't like, the stuff you would think of and the stuff you wouldn't think of. Like, who thinks about checking the weather for the period of time you're going? Because usually what you do is you think, oh, we're going to go in summer, so it should be hot there. But you might go to summer there, and summer there is actually might be rainy season. Or hot there is 40 degrees, not 20 degrees, which is what you used to. And I'm talking centigrade there, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think that would be impressive. And I've set up a little. I've paid for the API for ChatGPT, but I've set a very low limit. And I've actually set up a little loop in Notion where I post my questions to ChatGPT now through Notion, with some boundaries. Respond. So for example, I say format this as bullets, format this as a table, format as a normal response. Who's the persona that ChatGPT needs to be when I ask the question, and then what's my question, and then I just wait 5 minutes for the answer, because I found going to the site and trying to get it was just a bit painful, and that's helping me to formalize my questions better, and I don't even go to Google anymore. Now, one of the biggest problems with ChatGPT, if you listen to a lot of people, is that they don't believe that the data is accurate, because it's just a prompt engine. But I think most of the stuff that I get back is actually pretty useful. I still have to interrogate it and to put some sanity to it, let's say, so that I agree with what they're saying. But it cuts down my workload, because I can ask a whole bunch of questions. I go do my work, and I come back, and I got 5 minutes. I got a couple of answers to things that I didn't have to go research. The next step to that was I can just go and ask more questions to what I've read and get more answers. And I'm not even going near Google. I'm just talking through an agent, through a text conversation in a very loose way. I mean, the next step would obviously have a WhatsApp channel or something like that, or a Telegram channel to talk to the agent. And I think that's probably where search needs to go. It needs to go away from going to a browser and searching, typing a question there. I think it needs to move to a more interactive channel.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the Bing AI experience, right? Is having that chat panel, basically bringing that right to the web. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Something to keep a watch on and talking about for sure. But unfortunately, I do need to wrap up here.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that's exactly cool. We will chat next week.
Okay. Have a good See you then. You too. Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Heather Bicknell is our producer and editor. Thank you, Heather, for your hard work on this episode. Please subscribe to the series and rate us on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Follow us on Twitter @the DWW Podcast. The show notes and transcripts will be available on the website www.digitalworkspace.works. Please also visit our website www.digitalworkspace.works and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you found this episode useful, please share with your friends or colleagues.